Hi, welcome back to Lovin Sheila, the podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I spend a lot of time just kind of thinking about what we're going to talk about on any given episode. I spend a lot of time. And so I've been going back and looking at some old Lovin Sheila episodes. And for me, it's kind of remarkable to see the change that has taken place from like day one to now because we've kind of been we started off at a certain place, and then by episode 4, we had really made some distinct changes. I had made some distinct changes in my life, and so it kind of took a different direction, more like a healing journey, and so forth. And so, I did look at episode 4 this week, and I noticed that I said something, and I was talking about my ability to pivot and how I felt like, I haven't done that so well. I've always felt like I kind of locked in on something, and I was out of pure determination. I'm gonna make it happen through heck or high water. It's going down just like I initially intended. And so I said that I don't think I pivot very well, and that was where I was. And this week I spent some time with my girlfriend, and she had declared that that she doesn't think she pivots, and she made an affirmation that she's going to do a better job at pivoting. And so I was telling her, I was watching the episode and I was talking about that, and I had forgot about it. So we just kind of, we were reflecting on that, and we kind of stayed in that pivot zone all week and talking to some more friends, and I'm hearing this word. And so I started to take a closer look at me in my life and my ability to pivot, my ability to be agile and to move when necessary, and to keep applying information to make better decisions. And maybe you don't always stay on the same road. Maybe now that you've got this information, maybe now we're going to take a detour, or maybe now we're at a crossroads and we really need to apply some information and apply the wisdom that we've gained to this situation. And another thing I was reflecting on is I was thinking about the She Will podcast and some of the things that we've talked about. And we've talked about everything really in a very lighthearted manner. We've talked about a lot of relationships. We talked about dating. We talked about like knowing who to get involved with. What are your guidelines? What are you looking for in a mate and things like that. And so I say all this just to say, like, we've covered so much ground, and I think a lot of times I do these things without really noticing because I'm moving too fast and I'm not really grounded. Maybe I'm flying by the seat of my pants a little, so I don't really get to sit in it and really hear what I'm saying, or really like internalize it. And so as I thought about this pivot, and as my friend and I were discussing pivoting and making sure we're able to do it, I took a closer look at my life, and I realized that though I have ridden down roads, literally driven down roads and followed my course to the point of just last week I was driving down a road that the navigation sent me on, and I ended up on a dirt road, and I was like, should I proceed? And I was like, well, it says proceed, so I proceeded, and it got me stuck in the dirt. So maybe at that point a pivot would have been good if I had been a little more agile and just said, let me redirect a little here. And so when I was sitting there in the dirt, I actually was thinking about that, like, what type of metaphor is this of my life? The first instinct I had was, this is really stupid. Like, didn't I see the dirt pile there? Like, didn't I see it? Couldn't I have recognized that? And I guess it depends on, your focus. And at the time, my focus was not on the dirt pile. My focus was, I was trying to get home, but I was talking to my dad on the phone, and I was just like, oh, let's just go for it. And then next thing you know, I'm stuck in the dirt for a good hour. And so anyway, so we're back to pivoting. So we're talking about pivoting here. And so, like if I had made an adjustment at that time, I wouldn't have spent that hour stuck in the dirt and kind of afraid. I wouldn't have done that. I would have continued on a road that was drivable if I had made the adjustment. And so that just tells me how important it is, like I said, to take inventory along the way, but to also, as you take that inventory, to make the adjustments that need to be made. And, I tend to lock in on things. And sometimes, you kind of got to wear it like a loose garment so you can shake it off when necessary. And so something I'm learning, something I'm beginning to embrace more and more. But at the same time, as I look back at my life, I am seeing that though I said I've been pretty like hardcore, not pivoting, I have to acknowledge that there are some times, when I have done it successfully. And so I said I've done it successfully. Well, what is it? I kind of think of, I'm a basketball fan. I kind of think of, having our pivot foot in basketball. And it allows you to see more. If I keep my pivot foot down, I can kind of redirect, so I can see. But if I stay in this direction and I don't pivot, all I see is this. And so allowing my pivot foot here, I can kind of turn in different directions and I get a better view of what's going on, what my options are. So that's what pivoting is. Pivoting is. It's allowing us to see it allows us to see all of our options, instead of zeroing in specifically on just one thing. And so, though there have been times when your girl was definitely locked in on something, there also have been times where I've been successful in navigating better than I did last weekend when I got stuck. So, recently, I'd say in the last few months, I took a significant life-changing pivot, an alteration in my direction. And to sacrifice and to give up and to shake off things that I thought were part of my life forever, and realizing that maybe you're growing in a different direction. So it's pivot time. It's time for you to recognize, to put all your information together, with your situation. So when my information meets my situation, it's time for my revelation and for me to make some decisions. And so I feel like recently I have done just that. And even in the process, I think I've lost some budding friendships. And it's interesting to me. I think I've lost some friendships that could have really blossomed. But I feel like maybe it was because of my pivot, of my change of direction. And then also that in my pivot, I may have done things that others wanted to do. I may have had the ability to do things that others couldn't do. And the mirror of me kind of shunned some people away. And so I started to see things a little differently. As I pivoted, I started to see the positivity, the strength, the courage, all those things, the things that I did not see before. I just saw failure and time that I can't get back, or maybe some embarrassment, or why me, some pity maybe possibly. And so now on the other side of this, I see hope, I see opportunity, I see positivity, I see the strength and the courage that it takes to pivot out of a situation where all things are good for them. I mean, all things are made ready. Like you have made a good place for you. So what I've learned is, I can, I am capable of pivoting. I am agile. I can move in different directions. And what I need to do, and as we evolve, we always think we're the same. sometimes we think we're the same person. Sometimes I think I'm that girl, from 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago, but then, and I deal with myself in that vacuum, in that box, instead of realizing I have evolved, I have grown, I have matured, I have gained some wisdom along the way. And so the girl who was unable to pivot, the girl who was determined to make everything work as it should, now recognizes that it doesn't make you a failure if you don't, if you don't finish this course, if you can't make it to the race that day or whatever the case may be. You give your best effort, you try, you give everything you have, and then sometimes even after that it just doesn't work and you have to adjust. And so here we are adjusting. We're making the pivot. We're figuring it all out. We're landing on our feet. We're like, okay, we're gonna get this. We're getting new footing. And that's where we are today. And so today, what I'm talking about is like embracing it. There's so many things that I've sat back and I'm like, oh my God. And I just shake my head at different situations, different circumstances. And it's really, I can't believe this and all this other stuff, but I really have to come to a point where I accept it. It is my story. Again, I'm writing the story, and the story can change. It can go from a happy story to a sad story to a melancholy story to a sadder story to a joyful story to a victorious story. It's all in how you write it or how I write it. And so here we are. That's why I say we pivot, we make these moves, we are agile to, again, for me, it's all about making life what I want it to be. And sometimes I know that I have the fairy tale, that's what, even in this pivot, I remember the day that, I made some decisions. I was listening to a song. It was Fairy Tales by Anita Baker, and she was like, you never came to save me. You let me stand alone out in this wilderness, alone in the cold. I have no somebody to save me or whatever. It was like, my fairy tale is over, and now my reality must begin or something. And I think the words are kind of cool, so I like to run them up here so you can see. But I realize that there is an element of fantasy, an element of fairy tales in me. Like, okay, this is what I want, and I'm going to make it what I want it to be. And it may have all the signs of something that is like totally detrimental or hurtful or harmful, but I can maneuver around it. In those areas, I can pivot, apparently. I can maneuver around it, and I can make it what I need it to be. And so for me, it's just recognizing these things in me. Number one, okay, pivoting. Okay, it's essential. You have to have the ability, but also dealing with the reality of a situation. Like I came to the reality of my situation earlier this year, and harsh reality, but it was the reality. So I had to face it, and so that's where I am. And so for me, the fairy tale is over. And so maybe that's why a couple episodes ago I was talking about Alice in Wonderland, because no longer could I be Alice in Wonderland and go through the same things repeatedly and not recognize, like, okay, yeah, I'm not dreaming. This is real. What are you going to do? No one's going to wake you up. That's not going to happen. Like, what are you going to do? You are not in Wonderland. This is your reality. This is not a fairy tale. Now, what are you going to do? And so that's what, I don't know how many of us are immersed in the fairy tale of life. And sometimes the fairy tale might get a little uglier than we want it to be. But even in that ugly fairy tale, that may, for some, it could be a horror story, who knows? But we are capable, and we have the courage, just like we talked about the champion in Alice in Wonderland. There's a champion in us that can get us out of that. And in that champion, that's where we find that pivot. So just be encouraged in that. Like, life is not a fairy tale. Everything's not going to be skip to my loo and, hunky dory all the way. But as long as we remain agile, as long as we are assessing the situation as we go, we can make the moves that we need to make along the way to ensure that we're getting to our happy place. And it is a journey. I can say, no, I don't know if I'm there yet. Are we there yet? I can't say we're there yet, but I can say that I feel much freer. I don't feel the stress of it all. I don't feel the weight of a lot of things. And when I wake up, for me, I'm like, dang, I'm not really tripping over this, that, and all this other stuff. And I have a lot of responsibilities, and they're being taken care of. And I guess I can just say God is good, and He will carry you just like He's carried me through all these different things. But just know that we have to be able to move. We have to be able to be agile. We have to deal with our situation. Like I said previously, our truths. We need to live in our truth, and that's most likely why I had that podcast, Live Your Truth, because sometimes my truth was hard for me, and living there and dwelling there was not where I wanted to be. So if I could visualize it in a different way, I don't know if that's ideation, if I could do it in a different way, then it made it okay. It made it like, yeah, of course, but living in my truth and knowing who I am and getting closer to that discovery has made me realize how important this movement is. So that's just what I want to share with you, because I don't want you to, like me, feel like so determined and so steadfast and unmovable in worldly things that you're not really being receptive and open, and your antenna is not alert to what's really going on. So that's something I feel like we need to consider. So this brings me to the question that I often ask myself. And if you know me, if you follow me on social media or whatever, I often say, and I want to put it to rest right now. And that question is, how did I get here? Sometimes I'm driving and I go hike a lot, and when I get there, I get out the car, I'm like, how did I get here? Because I don't really want to do this. It's not what I want to do. And it's funny to me. So I go on my hike, and of course I'm glad I did it. And but it's funny. I'll be talking to my girlfriends on the phone. I was like, why am I here? Why did I get here? How did I get here? So anyway, that's a question I ask, not just in my hikes, but sometimes in my life. When I look back over it all, and I'm like, really? This is where you are. How did you get here? And so I'm going to put that to rest right now, because what I'm doing, what I've often done, is I have punished myself. I have been hard on myself. I've possibly felt guilt. I felt shame. And so I want to quit asking, how did I get here? It doesn't even matter, because the truth of the matter, I'll tell you actually how I got here. I got here with a lot of courage. Because there's nothing really that I've done that has been easy. As we get married, as we raise children, as we form a career, we buy properties, I run marathons and things like that. None of it has been easy. And I don't think we as women give ourselves enough credit for the doors that we burst through and the strength that it takes to do the things that we have done, And for me, when it falls apart or when it doesn't end up the way that I wanted, I'm like, I'm kicking myself. I've kicked myself and been upset with myself because I couldn't make it the way I wanted it to be or whatever. And so today I'm just going to say, I'm going to put that behind me. And personally, I'm going to say, how did I get here? Through a lot of courage, through a lot of strength, through a lot of perseverance. And so that's how we got here. And where we are, through some counsel, of course, I realized, where I'm pretty, I realize I'm pretty bad A, actually, because how did I get here? And how did I sustain, even how have I sustained the things that I have, and or my lifestyle or whatever. So for me, it's been pretty kick butt. And so I have to acknowledge that instead of saying like, how did I get here and what the freak is going on, just realize that, whoa, you got here from a lot of courage, a lot of work. You did that, and not everyone can do the things that we have managed to do or sustain the things that my family has sustained. And so instead of looking at the negative and, like the child flunking out of school, my relationships with my parent is not great, or I'm divorcing, or whatever it might be, those things might be true. But you have to also realize that instead of being stuck on those things that are not the things that make you happiest, you have to realize all the things that you have overcome and still see how you are victorious in this situation. And so as I look back over my life and I say, how did I get here? Well, I'm victorious. I got here from working hard. I got here from being courageous. I got to this point, by being diligent. And, some things I lost along the way, a lot of people I lost along the way. But there's nothing you can do. That's why I was listening to something earlier this week, and it was talking about the windshield and the rear view mirror. And there's nothing in the rear view mirror that's going to propel us to where we're trying to go. There's nothing looking back. There's nothing that's going to get me where I'm trying to go in the future. And so I need to keep my focus on the windshield and what's in front of me, to make sure that I am designing the life that I want. And that's what we all need to do. A life of purpose, a purpose-driven life. I'm working on it. A life of purpose. So that's what I'm thinking. So instead of asking myself, and I'm gonna commit to not asking myself that anymore. How did I get here? I know how I got here. It's apparent. It's evident. Obviously, there were choices along the way. Obviously, I had to make some moves. I had to be agile. I had to cry some tears and all that stuff. All of it happened. I had to suffer some pain. Okay? All that. But in the process, came out stronger. So yeah, I made it. We made it. And we did it intentionally, and we pivoted and we made the adjustment. And I got to stop selling myself short. I think I sold myself short because it was just unfortunate. And I don't want to say I was being a victim, but just like acting as if I didn't understand. But I understand. I understand that I stood, I've stood up for myself. I pushed back against things that were not what I wanted, and I made the adjustment. And I'm in my pursuit of happiness, and that was intentional. And so today I'm just saying, let's embrace it. Let's roll with it. It is what it is, and we are looking forward and not behind. We're looking for happiness and joy, and that's what we're seeking, and that's where we're going. And I, like I said, I don't have my blueprints yet. I have a framework, but I don't have my blueprints. I don't know the specifics, but that's what we're working on. So I am committing to putting that my age-old question, how did I get here, behind me, And I would encourage you to also, because look at our victories, look at the battles that we've won. Look at all the things that we've stood up to, all the positive things in our lives. I mean, I could name a million, and I don't know about a million, but I could name so many things, God has blessed me with, that he's taken care of us, that he has sustained us through, and I got a message a long time ago. Sometimes he doesn't deliver you, but he sustains you and he keeps you. And I certainly know that he has kept me and my son for some time. And so I cannot say, how did I get here? I got here because I was courageous, because God kept me. And that's what, I'm not particularly special. That's what it can happen for all of us, So I'm just recognizing it, walking in it, trying to own it, trying to move forward, trying to be empowered by it, because I am empowered. I do feel empowered, but there are certain parts of this I haven't embraced, and it's time. So it's high time that we embrace it, we recognize it, we walk in it, and that's where I am, and that's what I'm saying to you today. I'm opening up. I'm here. Like I said, I'm here for it. And lastly, I was listening to something. It was talking about shame, and I was here for it. It was on personal growth, and we were talking about shame, and it talked a little bit about Adam and Eve and how after the original sin, how they began to cover themselves, and they covered their privates. And before that, they were naked and unashamed. And once they sinned, they became, more aware, and they tried to cover themselves. And I guess the parallel with Lovin Sheila is, I'm naked because I'm being vulnerable before you, but I'm going to be unashamed because I need and we need love, and we need to be accepted. And so me being vulnerable and tearing away, the cover, tearing away the mask, allows me to kind of have a rebirth, an awakening. And so this vulnerability is also allowing me to, because we cover up when we don't feel loved. And so the first step for me, that's why it's Lovin Sheila. The first step is to love myself and to accept me. And then there's no need to cover up, because it is what it is. Whatever it is, good, bad, ugly, whatever it is, indifferent. It is what it is. And so that's just a part of this journey, just loving yourself, accepting yourself. And that's why we talked about pivoting and living in our truth and accepting ourselves and protecting our peace and all these different things, because these are the components of loving and accepting ourselves, and so we can move forward, because there's nothing in the rearview mirror for us. There's nothing back there for us. It's really finding our place, moving forward. And like for me, I have a framework. I may not have the blueprint, but I have a framework of what it should look like. And as we continue to do the work, we'll find more, we'll figure it out. And so that's what this journey is about, because we're not setting up a, tent or camp here. We're moving. And just another thing I heard this week was, this is not a photo. This is a video. This is moving. This is animation. This is moving forward. And so that's where we are. That's what we're trying to do. Move forward, find our happy place, live in it, dwell in it, make it everything we want it to be. We are capable, we are the authors of our story. So we can write it, and it can have the conclusion that we want it to have. And so that's what I'm here for. That's why she says she's here for it, because, we can make this story what we want it to be. And not a fairy tale, but some real, nonfiction, and with a good happy ending. So thank you for watching Lovin Sheila, the podcast today. Thank you for joining me. I love you for doing it. I thank you for taking this journey with me. I hope you're encouraged, just like I'm encouraged when I talk to you. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment. Let me hear from you. Your comments give me life. They propel me. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, this is episode 20. We've done 20 of these, y'all. We have covered so much content. And like right now, I'm just going back and refreshing because there's so many things um, that I kind of forgot. And I need to remember this stuff. I need to remember this so I can build upon it. So maybe you can do the same. There's a lot of good words in there, a lot of good encouragement. Maybe I'll make like a best of with a bunch of clips of what I think are the best commentaries we've had thus far. But anyway, celebrating episode 20. Thank you for joining me. Hope to see you on the next Lovin Sheila. Until then, take care of yourself and bye for now.